Welcome, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for joining us for AI. The future of digital advertising is here. I'm your host, Jim Brophy, Group Director of Digital here at Northwoods. So let's face it, AI is impacting nearly every aspect of marketing. As ChatGPT began to roll out almost 2 years ago, anything relating to content using generative AI was initially all the rage. So, in contemplating my opening remarks for this webinar, and out of curiosity, I turned to ChatGPT and prompted it to create for me a list of, hopefully, funny opening lines for a webinar entitled AI, the future of digital advertising is here. So here are a few of the responses that I received. Welcome to our webinar on AI and digital advertising. Let's get ready to see how algorithms are changing the ad game, because even your toaster is about to get a marketing degree. The next one it came up with was, hello, everyone. Get ready to explore the future of digital advertising with AI, because who doesn't want their ads to have a better social life than they do? And finally, thanks for joining us. We're about to delve into the world of AI and digital advertising, where the only thing more advanced than the technology is our attempt at humor. Clearly, for you joke writers out there, you don't have to worry. You have a lot to worry about. So anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. This morning, we will review the evolving role that AI has played in digital advertising and how to work with AI in ads, some AI tools, and share with you a case study using AI. To help guide us this morning is our digital marketing practice lead, Ed Kozlowski. Ed has more than 10 years experience in SEO, PPC, and email marketing in both B2B and B2C organizations. Certified in Google Ads and Tag Manager, Ed uses analytics and research to develop exceptional digital strategies and enjoys helping each client determine where they stand in the digital landscape and finding ways to improve their performance. Outside of work, Ed is an avid rock climber, loves spending time with his dog Benson, and is always on the lookout for the best Italian beef sandwich. If you have any questions during the presentation, use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions at any time, and we'll answer as many as we can during our Q&A session immediately following the presentation. Also, please feel free to use chat to connect with our team and other attendees, or share real-time feedback with Ed using the reactions button in the bottom toolbar. We will also address questions we receive from folks when registering for today's class. Additionally, we'll also be sending out a recording of today's webinar in the next few days, so you'll be able to rewatch it or share it with your colleagues. So with those housekeeping items out of the way and my very poor attempt at humor, I'm going to turn things over to Ed.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so just kind of going through our agenda for today, we're going to talk about the evolution in AI and digital ads, working with AI within ads, and then working with AI tools outside of ad platforms, and then take a look at a case study. So first up, the evolution of AI and digital ads. So the quote I bring up here from J.R.R. Tolkien is, "The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much of one is lost." So I bring this up because, one, I like Tolkien, obviously, in Lord of the Rings, but also if you look at this quote, it talks about things changing, but it's the world that stays the same ultimately, but it slowly changes over time. That kind of a theme with AI and how we work as marketers. So over the last few years, AI has become more and more prominent in what we do. And really, like, that's kind of been in the works for a while, but the emergence of ChatGPT is really what put AI on the forefront of things. That was because it was way outside of ads. It came in as this new tool. It was very different than what we've seen in the past, and it let us interact with AI versus just utilize it. So we're going to talk about both how we utilize it and how we can interact with it as we go through this deck. And just keep in mind, like, we've been using AI for a long time within digital ads. We've been using it in various things to kind of push ads further than what we've done. And it's changed how we do things at marketers, with the ultimate goal being the same. So really what it's come down to is understanding how to use AI in different ways and how to let it work for you and work with you. So just looking at some historical changes, you can look back in 2013, we saw data-driven attribution was launched by Google. Not a lot of people used it back then. Personally, I didn't start using it about 2019-ish is when I started using data-driven attribution. Traditionally, people used attributions like last click or first click, but data-driven attribution essentially learns the interactions with your website and values each click different and then attributes it to the conversion. This is why if you're looking at your data, you might see 50.56 conversions for a specific campaign. That's because there's another campaign that maybe had an impact on that as well. It's giving partial credit to each one. In 2016, Google launched automated bid strategies. This is kind of what we almost always use today when we're pushing ads is a form of automated bid strategies. It pairs really well with data-driven attribution. When it first launched in 2016, it didn't work really well, or at least we didn't think it worked really well. And part of that was probably learning how to work with AI. Things were new to us. These tools were new to us, and people had to learn how to use them. And then in 2019, Google launched BERT or did the BERT update for its SERP or for Google itself, not Google Ads in Google. And this is bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. So what this really means in layman's terms is BERT helps Google understand the context of search queries, and it's using AI to do that. So, well, yeah, this has a big impact on SEO. It also has a big impact on how you're using ads if you're doing them in Google Ads. And then in 2022, ChatGPT was released, and that really changed how people thought about things. And everyone's like, hey, we need to do AI. But it's like, we've been working with AI for quite some time now. So it's just important to know that all of this has an impact. This isn't a comprehensive list of every update that's been launched, but just wanted people to understand that, we've been using AI for a long, long time at this point, especially as marketers. So kind of going back to what we were talking about, the core of what we're doing hasn't really changed, right? It's how we do it that has changed. 10 years ago, we updated bid strategies daily. You'd come into the office, you'd look at data, you'd make some changes to what you were doing. You'd do that manual CPC change. You were really looking for cheaper clicks, so your budget went further. Today, now we really focus on getting precise conversion tracking, broadening our reach. We have more data to make decisions with and what we're going to do and what we're going to change. And we utilize automated bid strategies to find more and more micro moments that turn into conversion. So if you think about that, it's really about learning, what do I need to do differently with AI, right? With these tools that let me do more with my job, and it allows me to think a lot deeper into what I'm doing and actually accomplish a lot more, right? I'm not stuck looking at little data to say, okay, I need to make a change in my bid from $2 to $2.50. You might lose some things because you made that decision later than it should have been. And you can focus on bigger picture things, which helps us grow accounts. So moving into our next slide, we're going to talk about working with AI within ads. Within this presentation, we're going to talk a lot about Google Ads, but I think the important thing to realize is all of these different tools, not just these, all these other ad platforms, they're using AI in their own way. It's all very similar. So you have Bing/Microsoft ads and Google ads. Bing ads, how I kind of put it, is almost identical to Google ads, only it's often behind Google ads. It's not quite as advanced, but it uses the same things. Google launched Performance Max. You see that now on Microsoft. Meta / Facebook and Instagram, they use their own AI tools. They use their own automated bid strategies. LinkedIn ads as well. They use their own things. All of them have slightly different names, but they're all conceptually have very similar things that we do. What's going to be a lot different in social is you're going to be more audience focused, right? You're going to use audience data versus keyword data, which Google is keyword and audience data. So first thing to do is understand micro moments. So what is a micro moment? A micro moment is an intent-rich moment when people need to know, go, do, or buy something. Often see I want to go somewhere. I want to do something. You'll see I want. But it's not just limited to that. Some examples we have here are someone leaves a bike shop and searches where to buy bike tires for cheap. This user is most likely looking to buy. And now that I can use automated bid strategies, I know that I can bid on that keyword, but I know that Google's going to use location data to understand, okay, that person just left the bike shop. They're probably more primed to buy. So it's going to increase the bid at that moment. Another example is someone searches coffee shops near me. They do that at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. it's more likely that person's going to go get coffee now. So if you were bidding on that term, you'd want your bid to go up at 11 p.m. on Friday. It's more likely the person wants to know what coffee shops are nearby because they're planning. So kind of going back to one of those things, or this might be taking a step back, this might be a cheaper click, right? You don't want to pay quite as much for this. Maybe you do, but oftentimes, right, these are different clicks with slightly different intent. So there might be a variance in how much you want to pay. If we step back to these micro moments, we want to be able to bid more when someone's going to purchase and maybe less when we're trying to build awareness. So traditionally, you could always target those queries, right? You were always able to do that, but now it's really about being able to target the right person at the right time and be more aggressive in that moment. Oftentimes, traditionally, right, it was always, hey, I want a lower CPC, right? My cost per click. I want a lower cost per click. And really what I've tried to do with clients or people I work with to say, we don't want to focus just on cost per click. We really want to focus on cost per acquisition, right? Because our ultimate goal for most accounts or clients we work with is to get a conversion for them, right? So we want to get good quality clicks, and good quality clicks that are likely to convert are more expensive clicks. That doesn't mean you don't want cheaper clicks at times, but that's where we come in and analyze and make sure the ones that are expensive perform, right? We want to understand that. We want to make changes on that. So how is ad targeting done with it? It kind of goes back to all we talked about. It brings in audience data. It uses not just long tail keywords, but oftentimes you'll see these long tail keywords tend to be the ones that convert and are more targeted towards the micro moment. It uses various data like location, time, etc., things like that to kind of say, hey, is this person really ready to buy at this moment? Maybe it's even they visited certain pages on your website, going back to that data-driven attribution. It knows, hey, now's the time to up the bid on this person. These automated bid strategies can focus on conversion. So sometimes you might even see clicks or impressions come down, but really it's because you're increasing your conversion. So it's important to see the whole picture, but it's really important to stress your conversion tracking needs to be accurate. If your conversion tracking is not accurate, you're actually pushing the AI in the wrong direction. Important to note, there's many pieces to this puzzle, not the only information that's taken into account when we're going out and targeting these or the AI is going out and targeting it, but you need to understand it in order to make effective decisions to give it the ability to learn and go in the right direction. And one of the things you want to do is give AI liquidity for the best chance of success. So what is liquidity? Liquidity is an ad buying state where every dollar flows to the most valuable impression. This allows the machine learning to identify the most valuable impressions, right? Like it takes time for it to learn. It needs to go out and understand and test and do various things. If you're launching a new account, the AI is doing a ton of learning, right? You'll even see that when you set something, I'll say bid strategy learning when it's brand new. If you launch, or not even if you launch, on an ongoing basis, Google's always spending 15 to 20% of your budget on learning, and you need to give it liquidity to go out and do this. So how do you do this? Placement's really important, in audience. These kind of overlap a little bit because you might be doing audience target, but making sure your ads are in the right places, making sure you're targeting the right people. In this day and age, we don't just want to target a keyword, we want to target the right people searching that keyword. Some people searching it may have a slightly different intent at times. Some people might not be the right customer for you specifically, right? So as we have more data on that, we can go after who we want better in the right place. You need to give it not a lot. You need to give it ample budget to go out and learn. The amount really depends on the keyword velocity or keyword volume. How much keyword like volume over all your keywords there are is going to determine a lot of how much budget you need, as well as how expensive and how competitive they are. And then giving it a lot of creative to go out and learn and serve the best creative, right? We always traditionally did a lot of A/B testing. Now we use responsive ads. And we want to let it to go out and learn and pair all these different things and be able to go out and find the right people to convert. Now, there are instances where maybe you just want more clicks and you're going to not have a conversion focus. But overall, most of the time we're seeing we want to go after a conversion. So really what we're saying here is you want to let the machine learning by removing as many restrictions as possible. And this is a tough thing to do because oftentimes we want to really push it in the right direction, and going more broad can be a little bit difficult, scary, because it can lead to a lot of terms that you maybe don't want. So that leads us into keyword match types. Let's just go right down these. We have broad match. This broadly uses your keyword and catches a lot of semantic keywords or search terms. Phrase match targets phrases with your keywords in it. And then exact match is very exact or close match. It's no longer exact only, but it's often more bottom of the funnel, at least depending on what it's going to let you target right those very long tail bottom of the funnel keywords. When we look at this, most times you're going to want to be using broad match keywords, but not all of the time. When we have clients that either have had campaigns running for a long time, we're going to test. We're not just going to go from exact to broad match. We're going to slowly test various campaigns to see if broad match is more effective. And there's a couple of reasons for this. We go back to that liquidity. Sometimes you don't have the budget to learn up front, and it can take quite some time to see the right ROI. So that's why we want to test to see if we can get there right now versus pushing everything into it. That might take a little longer, but you have to ensure you're making money now and down in the future. Or down the road. And sometimes, keeping in mind that not everyone has the budget to push out and learn a lot of things. And that initial learning phase can be very expensive going to broad match. So it's kind of just talking about that right here in these pro tips, right? That initial learning phase can be very expensive. I'll give you 2 examples of what I've seen in an e-commerce client at one point. One, we had a campaign. It was pretty strong for us. It had a 50% average cost of sale, which was good compared to the other data we were seeing. However, when we just pushed it to broad match. And in that situation, we saw that average cost of sale drop to 20%, right? So 50% is if we spent $50, we saw a $100 sale. And 20% is we spent $20 and we got $100 worth of sales. So we saw instant results almost overnight. Same account, went in, did this to some other campaigns. These were not campaigns that probably, in hindsight, this was very like 2019 when we were still learning things with automated bid strategies and going more broad match, but like didn't have the data behind it to understand what converted as well. And the average cost of sale skyrocketed. It was up to like 100% after. And again, we were testing side by side, so we weren't spending all the budget on it, but we were like, oh, we have to pull back on this and start one by one and get them there, right? So it can take time and you need to do your testing to get there. And if you don't have ample budget, you're going to want to start bottom of the funnel, work your ROI, and then work up that funnel, even on the Google Ads funnel itself, which we'll look at in the next slide. But some keywords should be negative out. This is one of those things that negative out keywords is good, right? You should go through your search term report, get rid of terms that just aren't relevant, but you need to be careful not to overdo it because it becomes a restriction to the machine learning. In theory, the machine learning would over time learn these search terms that do not convert, and it would stop bidding on them, but you can do that much quicker and save yourself a lot of learning time. But if you go too far, restrict it, right? It might not let it go out and learn. And one example that it's just kind of an interesting case study I read at one point somewhere, I think it was on Google. It's like Google provided it, was people were bidding on office supplies. And one of the search terms that popped up was sparkling water. And it ended up that people searching for office supplies were also searching for sparkling water. So the person then started selling sparkling water. So they use that as an opportunity for a new product, which is a cool thing you can do. Not always possible, but the idea is there is a correlation that no one would have just made, but the AI was able to go out and figure out that correlation, right? And just remember, if your ads are restricted by budget, you need to consider being more phrase match, exact match, at least to start, because you got to vet out that ROI. And the other part of this that we kind of talked about is if you have that lower budget, start at the bottom of this type of funnel too, right? Like in a perfect world, you're kind of touching all these different areas, the awareness, consideration, sale. But especially if you're new, starting more in that sale area and building out. So having, longer tail search terms, having shopping campaigns. I don't remarketing. You can make the case to start with or not start with, but you want to start in that bottom funnel, get your sales, and then move up to more consideration, because you're probably going to have less converting keywords in consideration, but it can put more people in your funnel, and then build up to that more video and display where you're really putting a lot of people in your funnel and building awareness. Again, this is on a case-by-case basis. You have to have a conversation of what data do we currently have? What kind of budgets do we have? If you have really good sales data and hey, we know we're probably going to convert really well, you might be able to start a little higher in that funnel where you have campaigns on the bottom on the sale part and the consideration. It's just a conversation that you need to have with your client or whoever you're working with, and look at the data to see kind of what it tells you. So taking a look at responsive ads, because this goes into that creative part we talked about. Responsive ads are ads that adapt to show more relevant messages to your consumers. How it works, you feed the system with many different ad creatives. it will test variants to determine what works best. So you don't have to do quite as much A/B testing. So you're doing more testing essentially is what you're doing. And one of the things we do oftentimes is we go through each and every ad that we're serving, look at the headlines, the descriptions that are not performing, images, etc., and we try to pull them out and add new ones. Obviously, it's easier to create a headline or a description. Images aren't as easy to go through and clean out just because it can take time to create. You want to do that on a regular basis to update the information you're giving it or the creative you're giving it so it can go out and learn. So traditionally, right, A/B, you'd take version A, version B. If version A won, then you'd take version A, make a second variant of it and keep testing and continuing to do it. Now we're doing it much faster. And if you do a lot of work in this, you're going to see your display ads in your Performance Max. That's going to learn a lot faster than a search campaign, oftentimes because it just has far more impressions to work off of. So what's required to do this? It really depends on the ad type you're doing, but they're all using some variation of this. For instance, responsive search ads, you can use 15 headlines for descriptions. Now, when you build an ad, they actually allow you to just put like your image asset, formerly known as extensions, right when you're building the ad, you can just add images in there, site links, right? They're making this more, if you're familiar with Performance Max, they call it asset groups and then assets versus ad group and ads. They're making it more of when you build an ad, comprehensive of putting everything in there. So you don't have to build an ad and then go out and do site links separately. You still can, but you can do it right as you create an ad, which is really, really nice as well. Just note, everything has its own requirements. Display ads are going to be much more image heavy. Performance Max, they're going to be very image, video, and very headline and description heavy because they go into different areas of Google Ads itself. So talking about automated bid strategies, most of what we see is conversion focused. So bid strategies you'd be focusing on are, you might hear it as TCPA or TROAS, so target cost per acquisition, and target cost per acquisition is just that. You're targeting a specific cost per acquisition. So if I want to pay $50, it's going to go out and spend your money, and based on your conversions, you'll see a cost per acquisition or a cost per conversion of about 50. It's similar, just you're targeting for a specific return on ad spend. So if I want 200% return on ad spend, right, it's going to go out and look for conversions that get you a 200%, and then you can adjust that. It's really important to know when you have these conversion trackings and how they work is if you were to change that $50 cost per acquisition to 100, you're putting your campaign through a completely new learning phase. Or if you take the budget and you change the budget from $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month, same thing. It's going to go through a big learning phase, right? Like it's not that you don't, but like you need to be careful and understand when you make huge budget adjustments, it can have an impact on what's happening and have a little time to sort itself out. And we have maximized conversion and even enhanced CPC. Enhanced CPC is similar to manual, only you can set a bid and then it gives actually a little AI opportunity to adjust your bid based on what it's seen. But just a pro tip while we're on the conversion part, if you're using conversion focused big strategies, again, it's extremely accurate to make sure those conversions are accurate, or it's extremely important to make sure the conversions are accurate. And Google Tag Manager expertise and digital ads go hand in hand. That means that if you're working with an agency, the person you're working with doesn't necessarily have to be the expert at Google Tag Manager and ads, but you need an ads expert and you need a Google Tag Manager's expert there as well, because you want to make sure that what you're doing is accurate, right? It is very important to have both. And that's true of any platform, right? Like if you're running Facebook ads and you're conversion focused, you need to be tracking properly. Same with LinkedIn as well, or TikTok, whichever platform you want to choose. And then we have some other automated bid strategies like clicks. It's where you're going to maximize clicks, right? You're just going out for clicks. Maybe you don't have good conversion tracking. Maybe you just want to get a lot of data. And we have a brand new account that's never been used before. We might use maximize clicks up front to get a lot of people on there because there is no data for the AI to maximize your conversions, right? So we want to just get a lot of people on, see where conversions come in. And then over time, we'll pick a conversion automated bid strategy. You can do manual CPC. There are very select instances when this might make sense for a very, very restrictive budget, but it's very, very restrictive to what you're doing. And it's going to hold you back in most cases. Impressions, target impression share, right? And then we have CPM, TCPM, and VCPM. It's all about going out and getting impressions. This is really when you're going to be pushing brand awareness. You might see this more often on the display side or the YouTube side, just because you're pushing brand awareness quite a bit more. So looking at some tools in Google Ads, I bring this up because obviously we have tools outside of ads that can do this and people that can do it oftentimes better, but these various platforms are now getting more and more AI tools within them. And here you can see I just put in a road bike, right? And it pulled me up a road bike. The problem that you run into is you can't do a lot of complicated things. I can't do a lot of good lifestyle images. And if I'm selling a road bike, this isn't the road bike I'm selling. So it's not going to work in a lot of cases. Now, there are specific cases it might work. It can be a handy tool. The only really time I utilize this tool is if we urgently want to get a campaign up and for some reason, like creative needs to go through some approvals and it's going to take a while so we can get a quick image up there. But overall, I would say get good creative made, but just know this tool is there and available to use. And then more and more, we're seeing things like generate headlines with AI. Here I put in coffee mugs and you can see various headlines that generated. And there's more various tools in there that can really help you build out your ads. Ultimately, a lot of this stuff's been in there before. Like it had like, hey, it'll give you an ad score and you could see suggested headlines. It's doing very similar to what we're doing. This is a little better. Still, I don't use it that often. I use other tools that kind of go out and help create ads, but a lot of the work is done, by the person creating it, right? Like it's these AI tools assist you. They don't really just create them, or they don't create them well, I should say. So an important thing is teaching the algorithm. So kind of going back to what we've been talking about, giving it quality data is extremely important. If you're giving it bad data, bad audience data, so bad conversion tracking, and then stepping back to the audience data, people often are like, hey, I want to buy a list and put this list in there. I don't recommend doing that for various reasons, but like oftentimes those lists just are not accurate, or they've gone through some long-term time decay. Lists over time about every year decay about 18-ish%, 18 to 20%, right? So people just leave companies, emails just go out of date after a while, right? So like those lists are kind of giving it bad data. It's going to go out for a while and search for the wrong people because the data is bad, right? You want to give it good data. You want to give it really good keywords. You want to be in your search term report, feeding it new keywords. You want to be pulling out the really bad search terms at the right time. And you need to know to give time for the AI to learn. This can be one of the hardest things to do because people, I've worked with, especially when I was more on the internal side of digital marketing, is people wanted to every day look at ROAS and then say, hey, we got to make an adjustment. It's like, you got to give it time to learn. We made some adjustments. It's going to go out and learn. You're going to see a lower ROAS for the amount of data we had. It would probably be days. But if you don't have a lot of data, if you don't have a lot of like low keyword volume or lower budgets, it's just going to take longer, and you need to be able to step back. That is a tough decision to make. Oftentimes you need to let it go out and learn, right? And that's a conversation that we have with our clients. Like, hey, everyone asks for what's the right budget, and that's a very difficult question to ask, especially if I don't have good conversion data. But you want to shoot for 15 to 20 conversions per month at least, where the AI can really start to learn. So your budget is a educated guess up front if you don't have ads. Long term, we'll get a better understanding. But once you hit that 15 to 20 mark, it can really start to learn if you're doing a conversion focus. So you're going to tweak your budget based on that as well. And obviously, if you're seeing a good ROI, you're going to want to increase that budget. Avoid survivorship bias. The way I learned survivorship bias, just so everyone understands what it is in World War II, the Nazis were shooting down a bunch of US planes. And so they brought in scientists to study all the planes that came back to see where they were shot. They studied them, reinforced the areas where these planes were shot by bullets, and then the planes went back out, and the same rate of planes got shot down. So they called in another scientist, and he's like, well, the issue is you're studying the planes that came back. You're not studying the planes that got shot down, right? They needed the holistic view. And once they did that, they were able to reinforce the planes and lower the rate which they were shot down. So the way we need to use this is understand that, hey, if we're looking at keywords that are converting, great, we're doing great, but you need to understand you need to find more, and you need to go out and get more. Oftentimes a search term report can help with this, or doing further keyword research. And don't just focus on what you're currently doing. You need to expand and have conversations of what different terms people are utilizing. One tactic I've used for this in the past is like when COVID hit, product I was working on, the use case shifted. There was no keyword research. So we actually just anticipated the new keywords, and we were able to put in a bunch of new keywords, and we actually made a ton of money doing that. most of the time you'll be able to do keyword research, but there are instances where you need to anticipate and get outside of your kind of own bias or box. The point there is if you have a bias, it's going to go into the AI itself. Right? Because you're going to teach it to only go towards that bias. Perform regular housekeeping. This means look at what you're doing. Are things not working? What is working well? How do we get rid of specific campaigns? Do they need more time? But right, like give them ample time to learn, but sometimes things don't work that you think would work. Consider things like UX on landing page, testing new messages before you get rid of something, but you need to consider what is happening and just do a regular housekeeping of making sure everything works. And one kind of example I give, which is a little, we had ads, right? And we had someone come in and be like, this ad is really bad. And this is more in the importance of data than it is specifically housekeeping. But they're like, this ad does not make sense. I don't know why we have this ad. Please remove this ad. We looked at the data on the ad. The ad was the best performing ad, right? So this, by taking that data and utilizing it, we knew one, our bias, someone's bias was saying, hey, get rid of this, but we said, let's keep it because it's working. But then we can come up with other things and look at other areas. It's just the importance of data and understanding it and pushing it back into these tools to make sure you're pushing in the right way and not restricting it or letting your own internal biases change things that shouldn't be changed. So working with AI tools outside of ad platforms. I know one question we got beforehand was, what AI tools do you recommend? Is one I recommend. You can get on there for free, so it's a great tool to utilize. It can be very effective in various ways. A lot of what we'll show next is things we do in ChatGPT. Codium AI is one I've heard a lot of people use. Notion, this is great for organizing your work schedule. So it's a little different than like working on ads, but this is a tool that can help you put in your tasks, prioritize them, and it'll actually build out your schedule and switch it around for you and help you kind of like just be a little more efficient in what you're doing. And then one that we're starting to kind of move to is kind of allows you to work with multiple AI tools within one tool, right? Like, so you can work with ChatGPT within this tool. It has subscriptions, but like you can kind of use it as one spot to go out to different tools depending on what you're doing. So that's really the one I would recommend taking a look at as a way to really help you out with pretty much whatever you're doing, even if it's outside of marketing. So ad use, just some ad creative tips with AI. Use AI tools to help you create ads more quickly and think outside of your box. They will help you. They will not just create all the headlines and descriptions, or even if you're in the SEO world, they're not going to write you an article. They help you do things, get outside of your box, write an outline, get new headlines, refine your headlines, things like that. Really consider the prompts you're using to enhance that ad creation. You can put in prompts to kind of have it target specific characteristics that your audience uses, and it can help you generate some ads. But even with AI tools, you still need to create the actual ads, writing messages, etc. When I'm creating an ad, this probably has saved me 20% of my time. There's a lot of reiteration. So if you look at this first ad creative I brought up here, I had to talk to it for quite some time or type to it to get it to this point. And, I told it to create an ad, create headlines for someone who's interested in the outdoors and is looking for a digital ads agency. And it kept pushing back things like number one, which is discover digital solutions that align with your active lifestyles. Now, at this point, I have told it on multiple prompts to, hey, don't acknowledge that they're outdoor people. Give me ad creative. And it couldn't fully get there, but it gave me a couple decent ones. So if you look at number 5, tailored digital strategies for those who seek new horizons. I thought that was pretty good. Number 6, explore cutting edge digital campaigns to amplify your research. I thought that was pretty good as well. Number 9, a digital agency that understands your ambition for more. So I think it helped me come up with a few. I would still have to come up with more outside of this. The other part of this, it has a really hard time. Headlines in Google ads can only be 30 characters. It has a really hard time getting down to that. So I have to go and rework these anyways. So it helps do the job for you. And pro tip, use your in-market segments to help you tailor your campaigns this way. So like what I'm getting at there is you'll get in-market segment data from Google ads saying how well people perform, and it'll show you kind of their interests. Example, I had a client who was, just to keep them anonymous, this was not anything we anticipated, but they had a bunch, like their top performing in market segment was metalheads. So then we were able to create ads for them that kind of talk to metalheads or would we thought resonate with metalheads, right? So you can create like ad groups sometimes that target that, or maybe just your ad messaging includes some things along those lines. Keyword research, it can be a very good tool for doing keyword research, but I only am saying keyword research because that's how people think of it. It's really a keyword idea tool. It can help you go out and find new potential terms that people are searching. So when we have a new client, one of the first conversations is, what do you think people are searching? And when I ask that question, I know that you're going to give me a list. I know that I'm going to find another list based off what you're giving me, based off what I'm seeing online, based off what your website has, of what people are actually searching, right? ChatGPT can't give you that search volume. It can't go out and do things like a SEMrush or Ahrefs can do, or whichever tool you prefer. So like it really just helps you start to say, give me other keyword ideas along these lines. And you can give it different prompts to kind of push it in different ways to just get ideas of things that you then take and you go out and do further keyword research with. So again, this isn't like doing the work for me. It's just helping me get to the point of like, okay, it gets me out of my box again, right? It gives me ideas to work with. It lets me push things in different directions and kind of then go out and do further research to see if, okay, if tool A, let's say SEMrush is only giving me specific keywords, right, that are related, it can help me find new ones that might be more loosely related. Data organization. AI can help you format Excel and other spreadsheet files. So this is one that like this can save you a ton of time. Instead of spending all this time formatting different Excel files, you can really you can use AI, especially ChatGPT, to go in and just do that for you. It's really good with it. It can even push things. This is all dummy data that I had it, but I just had it like come up with this and it was able to prompt me. If I just gave it that customer information with none of these like headline values, it will figure it out or it'll name it very closely. Like it is very good at something like this. And this is a rare instance where I see it. It really takes my work down to 20% of the time when doing Excel files. So this is one tip that if you're not using it to organize your Excel files, this can be anything. It can be outside of marketing. It is just a great tool for it. I highly recommend using it for this. And I'm sure there's other AI tools that are really good at it as well. It's really helpful for building codes of different kinds, but here we'll focus on script creation. AI can do a great job of helping me. Right here, I prompted it, can you write one for pausing underperforming keywords? We had a long conversation on scripts and different scripts it could give me before that. So it had prompts to build things, but you need to be extremely careful. Well, scripts are good in certain situations, but they go back to the restricting the AI of your ads. If you put in the wrong scripts, it can really actually hurt your ads, even though you're like, oh, it's doing these cool things. So in this specific scenario, you can see it's going to pause if CTR is below. It's also going to pause if your conversion rate is below 2%. If you can see on 5 down on the VAR conversion rate. So why that's important? A conversion rate of 2% might be very good based on your industry. So you need to take that into consideration. The other thing is like seasonal trends. Like if you're pulling keywords out on a 30-day, I think a lot of people get stuck on this 30-day window. You need to be looking at previous year and previous times. I've worked in an industry where midsummer was we sold a lot. And then in winter, we didn't sell a lot, but we sold slightly different products in winter because they were needed for winter activities. So those products in summer, based on this script, would have been pulled out of our keywords and we might not even realize it, right? So it can be really, really helpful, but also really, really limiting to what you're doing with your ads. So you need to take all of that in consideration and you really need to work through the script and make sure it's accurate and doing what you want. There's a lot of work that still goes along with this. It just kind of like, it makes writing them much easier. Building account structure, this is a great tool for it. It's really for small accounts. It doesn't help a ton because I can do it almost just as quickly. But when you have a big account, this can be a great way to organize your keywords. Like if we're doing keyword research and we have 1,000 keywords, like instead of going through all 1,000 and grouping them, I can utilize this tool to create campaigns with ad groups and then group the keywords. The thing is, you got to check it because it will not group them all exactly right. So you need to go in and pull some out, move them into different areas. It's a very helpful tool, though. It takes the work. Like for me, going through 1,000 keywords isn't as fun. It's much more fun. I won't say fun, but fun to go in. And I guess I did, but to go in and go through all of these and sort them out. It's a little easier for me to do that than to go through all the keywords, right? I'd rather read them and just reorganize them than have to sit and organize every single one into its own ad group. individually. Data analysis, some of these tools can be helpful, but if you're using things like ChatGPT, especially the free version, it's going to give you, you can give it a lot of data and it can dig into it, but it's not always great. It'll just give you areas to, it'll kind of like summarize your data and let you find areas where you need to drill in further. But if you see in here, this campaign, it says performance max, this campaign is getting conversions, but its CPA is higher than the branded search campaign. So, okay, but that doesn't really tell me if that's a good or bad CPA, because a branded one, I expect a really low cost per acquisition because it's branded terms. It's very bottom of the funnel. The performance max is probably going out and more top of funnel. It's maybe an area to dig in more, or to look at the CPA and see if it's higher than my other campaigns and how can we bring that down with different changes that we can make in the system. So again, a summary tool is what I use it for, and then going out and drilling into the data deeper to understand if, okay, is this issue real or is it actually okay, right? In this situation, maybe it ends up being okay, maybe not, but I need to do further digging to understand that. So just a poll question here. What is your favorite marketing use for ChatGPT? And we'll give everyone a second to answer since this is a type 1. And don't just feel limited by ChatGPT. Any tool you use, feel free to drop a tool in or just a use. Great. So move on to kind of a case study here and look at, it's an anonymous client, but a client we work with who's in the software industries or software services industry. The situation with this client, our team spent years with them working very closely, and we spent a lot of time on their ad accounts, going very deep into the data, into the conversion tracking. We had everything from, like, we understand exactly who was converting. We were feeding this information back to Google. Really, we were seeing excellent growth. And through the time we spent with them and the testing we did, we had moved them to, they were very hesitant to move off of exact match and phrase match keywords. We spent time testing this. We tested things like performance max, found they didn't work. We pulled it out. But we found that, broad match keywords ended up working really well for them. We literally spent years figuring this out and getting this all together in an effective way that made sure they were making money now and more down the road and growing. Their cost per acquisition was coming down through this as well. They had a new VP of sales come in and they basically fired us ultimately. And despite the ad performance, they just decided to go in a different direction. And hey, that's fine. That happens sometimes. No worries. But the newly hired agency actually came in and reverted all of our changes to a more traditional approach. And not just on, we've talked about your bid strategies and not going manual. Not only did they go more manual, they did go enhanced CPC. They also put in their conversion tracking was not best practice. They just gutted everything we had put in the system for it to learn, and they restarted it. And that resulted in an increase of a cost per acquisition of 354%. And they were spending way more money. Like, they increased their budgets. They just didn't do it in a very responsible manner. They didn't let the data talk to them. They just wanted to put in what they thought was best, and they did not test it. Ultimately, what happened is this client fired the new agency, and they ultimately rehired us, and we came back in and kind of put everything we had done back in, and ultimately brought the cost per acquisition down to the normal amount. Since they've come back, some of the best months they've ever had. And you can read more on this, but the point I want to make is that, you need to know what you're doing when you're going in this stuff, and you need to make decisions that not just are good decisions based on conversations, but based on the data too. If I had taken over that account and someone else had done this work, the best decision you could say is, I'm not going to just rip and gut everything out. I'm going to look at your success, and now I'm going to figure out how to grow that success based on what you were doing, right? Because you're seeing good success, but now we need to go on top of it. And there may be situations you take over account where it's exactly the opposite. That's why it's important to look at the data. So just some questions to ask your agency. Are you using enough / appropriate budget? So everyone's always like, I want to pull back on budget, but ask them, can we spend more? Doesn't mean you should. Is there available search volume? Are the conversions saying it? How are you leveraging AI? You want to understand if they're utilizing it to work more efficiently. And honestly, that's going to allow more time for them to grow your account, and not just outside tools, but also kind of what we talked about with people were like within ads. How are you utilizing AI? How is it working together? How are our conversions set up, right? And this goes into, are you experts in Google Tag Manager? You want to make sure that they really have someone in-house who can really understands GTM and can go in and make sure things are set up properly and do regular checks on it. How are you accounting for things like evolving cookie policies, right? Cookie policies, excuse me. That's been changing. Google announced now they're keeping cookies, but not every browser is. How are you addressing that? If your company is international, are you using GTM to help manage data privacy, right? Because there's things with GDPR that you can do within there. Just make sure you're having these conversations. And are you manually handling bid strategies? And if so, why? Like, you want them to answer why they're doing that. And if it's because they want more control, that's where I would be a little like, I want to understand why you want more control. And if you're extremely restricted budgets and extremely low search volume, it might make sense. But oftentimes, majority of the times, it is not, or it does not make sense. So that's what we have, and we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. I want to get right to the questions because we do have several that were submitted ahead of time and a couple that have come up here during the course of your webinar. So thanks again for that great information. So I'm going to first focus on the couple that came in here live today via the chat. The first one that I got was, with AI having greater influence in ads, is the correlation between SEO and ads still important?
Oh, absolutely. Studies out there that suggest the more people see you, the more they will, the more your campaigns will perform, both your SEO and your ads. If you're running ads, I'll often see if we try something and send a ton of traffic to your site, I'm going to see your SEO go up because people understand your brands more. It is an ecosystem and they absolutely play off of each other. You should ultimately be doing a deep strategy on both that involves both, right? They should play off of each other. You can get keyword data from Google Ads to put into your SEO, and vice versa. You can use SEO data, like what converts, what pages do well, to push and help grow your ad account.
Great. And that correlates to one of the questions we got here towards the end. I think you covered, AI tools you can recommend for keyword research, paid or free type of tools there. So that was one question. But is there any tool that will analyze a website URL for keywords? So specifically focusing on the URL that might show intent for keywords, long tail variants, those types of things.
Yeah. So if you could use a tool like, we'll go in and they actually give you, if you put a URL, it'll show you all your pages that are ranking the keywords you're ranking, and it actually has a metric for intent. Like, it actually shows you, is it like informational, transactional, etc. So yeah, SEMrush is one we use a lot. There's other good ones, like Ahrefs is pretty good. Moz has a lot of good keyword tools, but we use SEMrush the most.
Okay, excellent. You kind of touched on this a little bit. Can help somebody become a DIY digital advertiser, right? Please tell me why I'm wrong.
Because I wouldn't fly on a plane with a DIY pilot. The important thing there is understanding like, a plane can take off and land itself, but you need a pilot there to kind of guide it and make sure everything's safe, and then step in and make adjustments. And that's what you need with AI and ads. You need someone who understands how everything's working and can make the proper adjustments. Going back to that case study, I don't know the people or the agency that took over the account, but they clearly didn't understand that, and it had catastrophic effects, right? Like, so it's knowing the decisions you should make, and when you make a decision and a change, how to do it, and then the overall impact it potentially has.
Okay. Thank you for that. Don't fly a plane with a DIY pilot. Okay, got it. Here's another question that came in ahead of time. I think we're going to have to maybe ask a follow-up on this, but let me go ahead and pose it to you. How can I effectively market my navigation app globally using digital channels while minimizing advertising costs? What are the most cost-effective advertising strategies?
Yeah, that is it's industry specific, it's website specific. That takes a lot of research and understanding to kind of make the right decision. Most people would need to do Google Ads, and you might see the most conversions there, but we want to get you the best performance. It might be LinkedIn. It really depends, right? So, like, I don't know your industry inside and out, so I can't really answer that. It would take research and understanding to develop a strategic plan for that.
And that's something we can follow up with the individual who
Yeah.
submitted that question. I think, a 10, 15-minute conversation to understand the objectives in the industry a little more thoroughly will help us kind of, answer that and give you some strategies to consider. Another one that was posed with respect to AI tools, with YouTube, Spotify, meta advertising. I know you went through some of the tools in the deck here, but any recommendations for those other channels?
I'm unsure. I'm assuming you mean from an advertising standpoint, which channels you should utilize,
I
right?
would assume that. And
Yeah.
again, this is somebody we can follow back up with as well. But just in general, I mean, I think there's a broad list of tools that you supplied.
Yeah.
There's other tools out there that might be more specific to those particular channels, but understanding the objective behind that question, I think would help us, identify what might be the best route.
Yeah. In picking an ad channel, again, that takes research and time. And, once you vet out that, hey, I'm going to do meta ads, and then you do it really well and you've grown it to a point, you want to start testing new avenues over time too. So I would just keep in mind, start in a place that is you think will be most effective, test that out, and then grow that area and then expand to others. Sometimes you may be able to do more than one at once.
Excellent. All right, well, that's all the questions we have. Thank you, Ed, very much for your spontaneous responses to those, and thank you to everybody who submitted questions ahead of time. Before we wrap things up for today, we'd like to offer everyone in attendance a complimentary consultation. Again, any additional questions you may have about AI and digital ads, or talk with Ed and our team about using AI to complement your ad efforts. So if we didn't answer a question today, if you want to just submit another question, want to have a conversation with us, more than happy to do that. This is a rapidly changing environment. If you learned one thing about Northwoods is that we're happy to speak with you and talk about your specific situation. So to request that consultation, visit us at nwsdigital.com/DM consult and choose digital advertising from the consultation type field dropdown. We also have several upcoming webinars that we think you'll enjoy. On October 10th, we will discuss what every marketer needs to know about WordPress. And on November 14th, we will present a case study in effective digital strategy for manufacturing marketers. As always, all webinars are complimentary and begin at 10 a.m. Central Time. And you can learn more and register at learn@northwoods.com. And if you're looking for information on a specific topic or just want to stay up to date on the latest digital trends and developments, please check out our blog, our recorded webinars, our YouTube channel. Excuse me. And we've also added a brand new vodcast series called Around the Campfire. And you can either look at that link there or you can get it in the footer of our website. And lastly, if you'd like to learn more about Northwoods and the many services we offer, from website design and development, the custom software and digital marketing to digital advertising and marketing strategy, visit us at nwsdigital.com to explore our services details, read client stories, and much, much more. And after the webinar window closes, a short survey is going to be available, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you could share your feedback on how we did this morning and how we might be able to improve. So with that, I'd like to thank each of you and Ed for joining me today. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day and a great rest of your week. Thank you very much.